wants to be honored and respected in the world, we can't give our word to people, whether it's 1, 3,000, or millions, and not take seriously the fact that we have to keep our word. And second, it would be really, really important to change the dynamics of our relationship with Iran. We all know that Iran is on its way, if it isn't already, a nuclear power. At best, it's months away. We have tried everything through 2 administrations to stop them, the Bush administration and now the Obama administration. Over the last year or 2, the sanctions have grown, the sanctions have become more intense, yet just a week ago there was an article in the New York Times that pointed out that although the sanctions were having a big impact on the economy of Iran, they were having no impact at all on the government, no impact at all on the Ayatollah, no discernible change in position, no real sense that even if we increased those sanctions by several-fold, they would have much of an impact. Not only that, but as long as China, which is exempt from the sanctions, and Russia, that's exempt from the sanctions, as long as they can trade with Iran, Iran can get by. There are so many exceptions to even these harsh sanctions. Yes, it has an impact. On the other hand, this is a government that is operating on suppression, oppression. They're not going to be moved by our sanctions. So we can have more sanctions if we want. They're just going to move ahead and become a nuclear power. The sanctions haven't worked. They're not going to work. You have to be a fool to think the sanctions will work. Second possibility is maybe we can negotiate with them. Well, frankly, the President of the United States has been begging them to negotiate with him for 4 years now. The answer has been no, 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 no. Just recently, the President asked to have bilateral negotiations with Iran, and Iran turned him down. I don't know how often you have to be told no to figure out the answer is no. They're not going to negotiate with us. They want to have multilateral negotiations, not bilateral negotiations. And why do they want multilateral negotiations? So that Russia and China can help to delay things, to obfuscate, to avoid having to make an agreement, because all the while they're buying time. They're buying time so they can develop their nuclear weapons. And we are foolish enough to allow them to do that. The third option, of course, is if worse comes to worse, the administration has said all options are on the table. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know whether to believe that or not, because the administration says that, and then I see actions that the administration takes that I wonder if all options really are on the table, like their selection of the candidate for Secretary of Defense. So I don't know, but at least I'll take the administration at its word that all options are on the table if Iran does become a nuclear power, which they are months away from becoming. What that means is all options on the table means we would take military action against Iran. That, of course, would be very, very severe and very difficult. I believe if it has to be done, it should be done. But I also believe if it can be avoided, it should be avoided. We've tried sanctions, hasn't worked. We've begged for negotiations, not working. So how can we possibly avoid military action? What's the last thing that's left? And maybe the most important thing that we should have been doing all along in the first place, and that is to support the legitimate opposition to this regime that is one of the worst in the world. We supported the people who overthrew Mubarak. We supported the people who overthrew Gaddafi. They were all Time Persons of the Year last year. They were all heroes. We are supporting, I think, the people that are attempting to overthrow Assad. At least we're supporting them verbally. Now, if these people who overthrew Mubarak, Gaddafi, and Assad are doing the right thing, then why wouldn't the people that are attempting or should be attempting to overthrow the Ayatollah, the mullahs, and Ahmadinejad, why aren't they part of that same moral cause of freedom, who should be listed as Time Person of the Year? The Ayatollahs, Ahmadinejad, the mullahs, far worse, certainly, than Mubarak. Mubarak was pretty bad. Not nearly as bad as the regime in Iran, however. Gaddafi was pretty bad, but he had given up his weapons of mass destruction. He'd been kind of neutered, bad to his own people. Assad is terrible, but none of them compare to what Iran has done under this regime for the last 30 years. The number of people they've killed, part of this organization. There's a book that's this big with all of their pictures, if you care to look at it. That's just a small fraction of the number of people they've slaughtered, of the number of American soldiers that were killed in Iraq with the cooperation of the Quds Force and the Iranian government. I mean, this is a horrible regime. We should be supporting the people who have a chance to overthrow this regime and not doing like we did several years ago, turning our back on them and leaving them in the street unsupported. Now, if we want to support a group that has a chance of having an alternative, then this group is exactly the right group to support. Our trouble in Egypt, our trouble in Libya, and our trouble in Syria has been we didn't know who to support. Were we arming people who were decent people, trying to create a free and decent government, or were we supporting terrorists who were going to be worse? Looks like in Libya, we made some big mistakes. Looks like in Egypt, we made some big mistakes. Here we have a group that has been on record for over a decade of supporting all of the things that are most important to us. This group supports a democratic Iran. They support a non-nuclear Iran. They support an Iran that will be based on law. They support an Iran that will be protective of people's rights, that respects the rights of women. This is a group, president-elect of this group, the leader of this group, Madam Rajavi, by the way, is a woman. Every time I've gone to meetings, and Judge Mukasey can support this, half the audience, including in Europe, are women. This is a group that believes in equality for men, for women, in separation of church and state. This is a group that believes in all of the things that we believe in, and we don't have to fear that in supporting this group, we're supporting a group that has a whole group of hostile intentions. So I say, if you want to gain leverage in your negotiations with Iran, if they ever can take place, the very best thing to do would be to support the MEK as an alternative to the regime in Iran. Finally, I just have to return to where we started because I'm so afraid and have been afraid since February 9th that another attack is going to take place. Because I believe that the purpose here of the Iranian government that is calling the shots and the Iraqi government and Maliki, who are their puppets, is to wear these people down. The reason you move them from a well-constructed camp to a concentration camp that's ratty and rat-infested and horrible is to break them down, to get people who will defect, to get people who will leave, to get people that may turn over other people that they're seeking to harm or hurt. The Iranian regime is insanely afraid of the MEK. Those people who tell you that the MEK cannot offer an alternative to the Iranian regime just has to look at how frightened the Iranian regime is of the MEK. These are just 3,400 people. Why do they make such a difference? Because their act of strength, their willingness actually to move from Ashraf to liberty and put their lives in jeopardy, their willingness to stay together and not defect and not break apart. You realize how frightening that is to horrible dictators when they see that kind of strength, and they realize that that kind of strength is supported by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people all over the world? They want to eradicate them. They want to destroy them. They want to break them apart. They want to break their will. That's what concentration camps are for, isn't it? To break people's will. That's why they have them in horrible, deplorable conditions. That's why they allow mortars to be fired in the middle of them and kill innocent people in order to destroy their will. We have to make sure that doesn't happen. We have to make sure that doesn't happen. Because they are our only hope. They're our only hope that within our generation we can see an Iran that lives up to the wonderful Persian culture that is and was Iran, that lives up to the incredible accomplishments that people who were thrown out of Iran, people had to leave Iran, as they had to do over the last 30 years, the incredible accomplishments they've had here in the United States. These are enormously talented, cultured, civilized, and educated people. They are entitled to a government that is as good as they are. They are entitled to a government that respects rights, dignity, human dignity. And the United States of America is entitled to have at least one more reliable ally in the Middle East, because right now we're down to one. Wouldn't be a bad idea if we could have two reliable allies in the Middle East. It could sure change geopolitical politics. Maybe for once, we can be on the right side at the right time and be in the right place. And in doing that, we can fulfill the obligation that we have to these people, the solemn promise that we made, and we can fulfill our obligation that we have as Americans to spread the blessings of liberty to the entire world. Thank you very much.